There is a moment, often so subtle it dissolves into the background, when a man first senses that he is safe with someone, not because she tells him, not because she promises anything, but because something in him unclenches, as if an inner god finally receives permission to rest. It rarely arrives dramatically. Sometimes it's a small conversation spoken without tension. Sometimes it's her silence, steady and unthreatening. Sometimes it's simply the way she looks at him without expecting him to be larger, stronger, or more certain than he truly is. For a man who has spent years measuring himself by usefulness, performance, or control, softness can feel unfamiliar. Yet he recognizes it instinctively, not with his thinking mind, but with the deeper, older wisdom inside his chest, the part that notices when the world stops feeling like a battlefield. With her, moments stretch instead of collapse. He hears his own thoughts without flinching. His breath deepens without permission. He notices how his jokes become gentler, how his voice steadies instead of rising defensively, how his eyes meet hers without searching for threats. Peace with her is not loud. It does not shout or shine or demand attention. It settles around him the way dusk settles on a quiet street. Slow, natural, unforced. He begins to understand it in fragments. The first time she listens without rushing to fix him. The first time she asks how he feels and waits for him to find the words. The first time he realizes he doesn't have to translate his exhaustion into something more acceptable. Her presence gives him permission to be human in ways he did not realize he had been avoiding. There is no interrogation, no hidden tests, no emotional traps waiting. Behind her warmth, just space, open, breathable space, where the armor he wears all day no longer feels necessary. It confuses him at first. Peace has never been a common visitor in his life. He learned early that calmness had to be earned, that emotions had to be swallowed, that vulnerability was something to manage quietly and alone. So when she looks at him with a softness that doesn't cut or corner him, he doesn't know where to place it, but the body knows. Before the mind catches up, the nervous system registers her presence as familiar. Not familiar in the sense of repetition, but familiar in the sense of what he has always wanted without knowing how to name it. With her, he feels seen without being exposed, known without being evaluated, valued without being drained. He starts noticing the difference in unexpected ways. The way he stops rehearsing conversations in his head before speaking. The way he no longer prepares defenses for disagreements that never arrive. The way decisions that used to suffocate him begin to feel simpler when reflected in her calmness. There is no chaos around her. No emotional storms erupting without warning. No walking on eggshells. No decoding of mixed signals. Just steadiness, the kind of steadiness that makes time feel slower, safer, more breathable. And it is in this quiet, almost invisible shift that something profound begins inside him. He recognizes that her peace is not fragile. It is not the type that shatters under pressure. It is rooted, grounded, steady, like a tree that has weathered many seasons but still stands open to the world. This recognition does not explode like revelation. It forms gently, like morning light appearing edge by edge across the horizon. He doesn't fall in love with her because she brings excitement. He remembers her because she brings peace. And long after the world moves forward, long after routine swallows him again, long after noise returns to fill the spaces she once quieted, he will still recall the first moment his body understood her presence, not as romance, not as fantasy, but as safety. Rare, grounding, unforgettable. Before a man recognizes peace, he recognizes tension. Long before he knows what safety feels like, he learns what it means to brace. His restlessness did not appear suddenly. It was shaped quietly, over years, through small moments that taught him the world required a version of him that was always alert, always capable, always holding more than he could confess. For many men, restlessness begins in childhood long before they learn the language to describe it. It begins the first time someone tells him to be strong, before he even knows what strength is. The first time crying feels like a mistake. The first time uncertainty earns him disapproval. The first time silence becomes easier than explaining feelings that no one seems prepared to hear. Across families, cultures, and generations, boys receive a similar message. Your softness is inconvenient, so they learn to hide it, not out of rebellion, but survival. He grows up understanding that emotions must be managed privately, silently, invisibly. He learns to swallow questions about his worth because asking them aloud might expose him. He learns to endure confusion rather than seek comfort. Comfort, after all, is rarely offered to boys in ways that make sense to them. As he ages, this restlessness turns into a kind of internal architecture, a framework built from expectations he didn't choose, but feels responsible to uphold. He becomes used to holding tension in his jaw, in his shoulders, in the pauses between statements he never finishes. He perfects the art of appearing steady, even when he feels unanchored. And over time, restlessness becomes his rhythm, a low hum beneath every decision, a constant sense of needing to be more, calmer, stronger, more certain, more controlled. The world rewards him for it. It praises his resilience, his composure, his ability to endure. It rarely asks whether endurance was ever supposed to be his default state. He becomes a man who handles things, who knows how to fix, solve, contain, suppress, who makes himself smaller in emotional spaces so others won't feel burdened, who carries the weight of unspoken expectations like a second skin. But this strength is not the quiet, grounded strength of inner peace. This strength is survival strength, rigid, exhausting, constantly performing. Somewhere along the way, he starts believing that rest is weakness, that needing comfort is embarrassing, that longing for gentleness makes him less of a man. So he seeks pride instead of peace, control instead of comfort, distraction instead of connection. And because he's used to being needed far more than he has understood, he rarely notices that restlessness has become his home, not because it feels good, but because it is familiar. When he meets a woman who offers calmness, genuine, steady, unforced, it unsettles him, not because it is wrong, but because it contradicts the story he has lived with for so long. Her softness touches a part of him he abandoned years ago. Part he wasn't sure deserved attention, a part he learned to quiet in order to survive. She does not ask him to perform. She does not measure him by productivity or certainty. She does not treat his feelings as inconveniences. And he realizes, almost reluctantly, how foreign that feels. Because peace is not merely unfamiliar. It confronts everything he learned about what it means to be a man. Her presence reflects a truth he has long ignored. His restlessness was never natural. It was taught, reinforced, expected. And somewhere in that realization, a deeper understanding begins forming inside him. His longing for peace is not weakness. It is the mind trying to return to a state it should have never been pulled away from. Men do not forget the women who bring them peace because they remember what life felt like before her. A constant bracing, a constant tightening, a constant performing. Becomes unforgettable not because she saves him, but because she reminds him of something he once knew before the world asked him to be unbreakable. A man does not soften easily. not because softness is unnatural to him, but because his nervous system has learned to survive through tension, relaxation. For someone who has spent years on emotional alert, can feel more dangerous than stress itself. This is where the psychology begins, quiet, intricate, and deeply human. Every person carries an invisible internal system, constantly scanning the world for danger or safety. It listens not to words but to tone, energy, consistency, and presence. This system is older than logic, older than experience, older even than memory. It belongs to the body, not the mind. When a man meets a woman who regulates rather than overwhelms him, something profound happens beneath the surface. His nervous system recognizes her before his thoughts do. This recognition is not romantic. It is biological. Human beings co-regulate naturally. One steady nervous system can help calm another, the same way a steady heartbeat regulates the fragile pulse of someone in distress. Her voice, her pacing, her emotional steadiness, these are not small things. They are signals. Signals telling his body, you can put the armor down for a moment. Peace is not a personality trait, it is a transmission, and his body responds long before he consciously realizes it. His heart rate settles in her presence. His breathing slows without instruction. The hypervigilance that once tracked tone, implication, and threat begins to loosen, as if stepping out of a storm into shelter. He softens, not because he decides to, but because safety shifts the body automatically. Psychologists call this neuroception, the silent evaluation of safety without conscious thought. He doesn't think, she is safe. He feels it. This is why peace cannot be forced, why chaos, even when disguised as affection, cannot be mistaken for comfort. The body knows. The body always knows.